Hello, hello. What's up, everyone? It's Wednesday, December 19th, 2018, and it is good to see you guys. Welcome back to the A-Side Live Chat Podcast. Thank you for joining us today. Happy holidays to everyone out there. Hopefully this holiday season is a stress-free one for everyone, or at least as stress-free as I guess the holiday season can be. Maybe that doesn't exist. But hey, we thank you so much for spending some of your time today here with us. My name is Shaun Al-Shatti. And you know the other man over here. I am joined, as always, by my good friend, live from the MMA fighting sauna in Los Angeles, Mr. Marc Raimondi. How are things, man? How are the holidays?
I had someone ask me today, Shaun, if you're always that chipper and friendly and in a good mood, like you are every intro to the A-Side, and my answer was no. It's all BS. It's just part of the show. It's all kayfabe, so to speak. It's not real.
It's all a big.
You have a comment on that, on the facade that you're putting up every week?
You took the words right out of my mouth. It's a facade. I'm a very deeply troubled person. This is all this smile is all fake.
I guess someone has to kind of counter my lack of enthusiasm every week. So I appreciate you for being the yang to my yin, or the yin to my
Why
yang.
did you reverse those?
Or otherwise?
Why did you reverse those?
I don't know.
It's weird.
I don't know what I'm saying. I'm very tired. I'm very tired.
But yes, I will talk over you. You are a negative person. So I got to be the positive person, right? That's how it works.
I like to think of myself as realistic, not negative. Realistic. I keep it real. I keep it 100, as the kids say. 100.
All right. Well, hey, we have another loaded show for you guys on tap today. Bellator boldly went where the UFC has never gone before, and it was a very fun weekend. And meanwhile, close enough, Hawaii. I was very jealous of Esther Casey for being there to cover it. That was one I was very jealous for. Meanwhile, the Fox era ended with an absolute banger between Iaquinta and Kevin Lee. Now John Jones, Alexander Gustafsson 2, that is next, and I cannot wait for that. Both me and you, Mark, we will be in Las Vegas for that next week. That's going to be a fun one. But hey, as we always say about this time, this is your guys' show. So whatever you want us to talk about, we are going to talk about that. You can ask us a question on the MMA fighting page below us. Any question that gets 3 recs, those will turn green and get priority. Or use those hashtags. Hit those hashtags, the A-Side or chat rappers. Replay coming up immediately on YouTube. Also iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, wherever else you get your pods later today. And if there's someone out there that you want to listen to and it's not on there, just let us know and we'll put it up there. And with that, Mark, this is enough introduction. Let's do the damn thing. Let's dive into some questions, man. There is a ton to talk about. Ton of green questions on MMA fighting. So let's start with used to be good.
Are we on LimeWire, Shaun?
Does LimeWire still exist?
How about Napster? Are we on Napster?
Do you remember Kazaa?
I do. Man, Kazaa used to crash my computer, man. Oh my god, that was a burden. It's a burden on my old. I think I had a gateway desktop that Kazaa just effed with.
I feel you. I had maybe like 60 gigs at one point of downloaded music from SoulSeek, where you could just get like the whole album in like quarter of a second. At some point, it ruined my computer when I was a kid.
Well, if I were to look at Shaun Al-Shatti's 2002 Kazaa download list, what would I find on there?
2002.
No, okay. I mean that's kind of around the time that Kazaa was a thing, right? 2002.
Yeah. I mean that was like high school.
2003. We were in. I mean, I was in college. You might have been in elementary school. I'm not really sure where you were.
I was a freshman in high school in 2002, and I was very into. You'd find a lot of like 9 Inch Nails and a lot of like fake hard rock, basically.
Fake hard rock.
I mean, like just whatever mainstream hard rock that angsty Shaun Al-Shatti would be listening to.
But were you angsty?
I feel like all teenagers aren't they? Are they not?
I mean, yeah, maybe. I was listening to like some horrible like pop punk and like emo stuff when I was in high school.
Oh, so. I could see Marc Raimondi as an emo guy.
Little Simple Plan on the LimeWire.
That is the least surprising thing about you I've ever heard in my entire life.
Little Newfound Glory on there. Taking Back Sunday. What?
I digress. Let's talk.
Let's digress.
This is coming from first one's from Used to Be Good. who wants to know about Raging Al, who made a giant statement this weekend, I must say. Raging Al is back! Exclamation point. This weekend, Al Iaquinta put on a great performance against a tough Kevin Lee. Afterward, he called out Conor, and that seemed to be expected given the fact that they have exchanged some pleasantries via the media outlets. How do you think a fight between the real estate agent and the whiskey salesman plays out? I like the phrasing on that. And what are your thoughts on the build-up to that fight? P.S. I hope I didn't make any grammar mistakes this time. Best regards from Europe. No, that was great. So, Mark.
You forgot the best part of that entire comment.
Hashtag Dominic.
Dominic.
So, Mark, Al Iaquinta took a decision over Kevin Lee in a rematch this weekend. It was a hell of a fight to send off the Fox era. First things first, just how did you score the fight?
I scored it for Iaquinta. I had it 48-47. I would have been completely cool with 49-46. There were some close rounds early on. I did feel like Kevin Lee won at least one of the first 2 rounds, and I think that Iaquinta definitely won the last 2 rounds. I'm pretty solid on Iaquinta winning that decision. I don't find that to be controversial in any way. Were there close rounds? Absolutely, but I think that Iaquinta was the clear winner in that fight without a doubt. As far as his performance, just fantastic, man. I mean, just amazing. And he's one of those guys where he fights somewhat infrequently. So I think people do forget how good he actually is. And he is really, really damn good. And he's not flashy outside of that crazy spinning elbow that he landed in I believe it was the first round of the fight against Lee. But he's not a flashy guy. He throws a lot of jabs, those were incredibly effective against Lee. He has very proficient boxing. He has great footwork. He's not a guy that's going to wow you with his amazing athletic ability, but he's got great cardio. He's got really good boxing. He almost reminds me a little bit of, and maybe I'm slightly racist because I'm comparing him to another Italian American from the Northeast. I'm not gonna say not myself. I'm comparing him to Frankie Edgar. I think that there's a little bit of Frankie Edgar where he's got great boxing, good wrestling, good takedown defense. Very similar in some ways to Frankie Edgar. The durability, the toughness, the cardio. I think Iaquinta is far underrated, far better than people give him credit for, and he made a huge statement in Milwaukee on Saturday.
I agree, man. He made a giant statement because he was coming off of this Khabib fight, and I feel like he almost hasn't gotten the credit for the Khabib fight that maybe others would have gotten because of the circumstance. It was a short notice fight last second, just a day basically. But him going the full distance, I feel like a lot of that people attribute that to Khabib just wanting to sort of test his striking and messing around a little bit. But he had Al in some tough spots, and Al survived, and he did the same on Saturday, man. I agree with you on the scoring. I gave Al 1, 4, and 5. I gave Kevin Lee 2 and 3. But in 2 and 3, Kevin Lee had Al in a tough spot, man. Body triangle locked on, searching for that rear naked, just getting pounded. And Al survived, man. His cool under fire and his ability to just maintain a calm presence in there while also still being very focused is extraordinarily impressive. And I agree with you. I mean, that jab was tremendous on Saturday. And also just, I mean, some of the power punches he was throwing, some of those hooks were monstrous. I don't know how Kevin Lee survived that last about 2-minute assault in that 5th round. It really looked like Al had him on the ropes there, and he was showing tremendous patience. I agree with you in the sense that Al fights so infrequently that it feels like he's almost surprising every time with how good he is and how good he really has become, because we've seen this guy grow up before our eyes. Al Iaquinta, without having fought nearly as much as others, has just as many chapters, if not more, in his UFC career than a lot of other fighters, man. Just because of, how he started with The Ultimate Fighter and then sort of his initial early run. And then he has this middle portion where he's beefing with the UFC so hard and he just can't fight. And he has these injuries constantly, these knee injuries. And now he really seems to have been back now, or at least be back for 2018. He has put together a tremendous 2018, and it almost feels like that beef between him and the UFC has been squashed fully at this point. Like he did them a giant favor by taking the Khabib fight on 1-day notice, and at this point they're just giving him respect and what he was asking for the entire time. He just made evented the last Fox show.
I don't know if we'll say the beef is squashed just yet.
I would
I
say
think
squash. Well, I would say squash compared to where it was, where they were on terms that were.
Yes.
We rarely see fighters get to those level of terms with the UFC.
Well, there were times where Al was talking about retiring and just kind of throwing himself into real estate. He said that many times, that he's just gonna say, you know, screw it and go do his other things, which are lucrative for him, sometimes more lucrative than actually fighting. But he's in a good spot now. I think he's in a really good headspace. He's injury free, and I think it is time for him to. 2019, I think, is a really big year for him, because I think that he has momentum coming off this Lee fight. He's in a good space. He's in a good space with the UFC. He's in a good spot, I think, on a personal level, and I think he should get a big fight next. And I know that he wants McGregor. Ray Longo was on the MMA Hour, and he said McGregor. I do think that there is some merit to those desires and those wishes. I do think there is some intrigue in that fight, because there is a little bit of a backstory there with the two of them. They have kind of taken shots at each other. McGregor made fun of Khabib by saying he couldn't finish a real estate agent, which Al is. Well, McGregor got finished in the 4th round by Khabib, so he couldn't finish the real estate agent, but he finished McGregor. So it's all very interesting, and I think that is that we've been talking for a long time, Shaun, about what is the right fight for McGregor next. And I feel like
hold on. Let me set you up, because that was my question to you.
Yeah.
What's next for Iaquinta? Is that the one you want? You think the Conor fight is the one?
I think that makes a lot of sense. And I know you've said Poirier, you've said Gaethje. Look, you can't really go wrong, but I think McGregor against Iaquinta actually sells better than both of those. I do.
Your connection messed up a second.
Oh, sorry. I was saying that I think McGregor versus Iaquinta sells even better than McGregor Poirier or McGregor Gaethje. I do.
I don't know that either of those three sell particularly more than the other, because all three of them.
I think Al will promote the hell out of that fight.
That's fair. I don't know that matters as much, though, because he's just as much of an unknown to the casual audience as the other two, Gaethje and Poirier. I will say, though, Al is number 4 now at the lightweight division. He just beat Kevin Lee. I think Kevin Lee was number 4 before him. There is not many more names to go if you want to shoot upwards. I mean, it's Poirier, Ferguson, and McGregor. Those are the only guys ahead of him. So whatever fight he gets, man, you're right. He's going to have a big 2019. I don't think he's going to get the Conor fight. I actually don't think we're going to see Conor for a while. I mean, he has this Nevada thing going on right now. And also, I mean, I just generally, it feels as though we're going to not see him for a bit. I don't know, man. I don't know what the fight would be. I'm trying to think of a good answer, because if it's not Conor, I don't know what it would be. Dustin Poirier versus Tony Ferguson feels like they might be paired off if Khabib has to be held off for a bit. Other than that, I don't know. Maybe one of those three. What would be your second?
It has to be Gaethje, right? I mean, we're talking about there's kind of that big 4 in that division right now, right? There, I mean, outside of McGregor and Khabib, who we still don't know, like you said, about when they're going to come back, what their situation is with Nevada. We won't find out until late January, which is, you know, still feels like a very long time to not have any clarity at the top of that division. So I think that if you're saying Poirier versus Ferguson, might as well do Gaethje versus Iaquinta. I think that makes a lot of sense. There's also that wild card of Nick Diaz kind of out there somewhere, kind of waiting for his opportunity to come back and into the fold. He's still out there. I'm not sure if he fits into this equation at all, but to me, those are the names at the division that are kind of jockeying for that position to get either Khabib or McGregor next. If we don't know when they're going to come back, those guys have to fight each other, I guess, in the interim.
What a lead up Nick Diaz versus Iaquinta would be. That would be so fun.
I think it would be interesting, but I think there is a lot of mutual respect there. Neither one of those guys have talked crap about the other.
Absolutely. I think more so the lines that would be spewed would be very funny.
I think Ferguson versus Al could probably be the most entertaining of the lead ups.
Yeah. Because
it'll be Ferguson saying a lot of hilarious things and Al saying, "What the hell are you talking about?" That's pretty much the entire lead up, over and over, some form of that.
Yeah. I would say give him one of the three, whichever, because Khabib, Tony, Poirier, whichever one doesn't get matched up with the other three, give him that guy. Just let him do like basically a 4-man tournament.
How about what if Max Holloway comes up to 55?
I don't want to see that yet.
It's an embarrassment of riches if that's the case.
I don't want to see that yet. Max Holloway has still work to be done at 145. Let that man seal his legacy.
But yeah, it's that division. That division is by far the most intriguing in the UFC. I think now by a wide margin. I really do.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. It is lapping the field at this point, and it goes to show there would be room for 65 if they wanted to make it. But hey, what's next?
From Robin G 1987 in the MMAfighting.com comments, belt teaser ? Guys, what's up with that weird UFC teaser with a possible new belt with an American and Canadian flag on it? If it indeed is just a new belt design with the flags of previous belt holders on it, what's the big deal? Or could it be a sign that GSP is ready to fight for a belt next against an American competitor? Will it be for 170-pound title, or Covington/Ferguson/Diaz, etc. for new 165-pound title? Shaun, any insight into this strange, odd, mysterious belt-looking teaser that the UFC has been putting out?
Well, I certainly love the detective work of trying to connect the lines to say this is a sign for GSP's comeback. That is well done. Unfortunately, I don't think it's that. I feel pretty confident in saying that. People have told me that the UFC has considered and maybe actually doing a new belt at the end of this year. I think that we may hear something about that soon. So I think it is. I think it's something to do relating to that. And in that case, it would be a situation where, in my understanding, if this happens, is that the belt would basically have all the nation's flags for like the previous champions of that division, which could be a very cool idea. I don't mind that idea at all. I would certainly like to see an execution. But yeah, it seems I wouldn't be surprised if we see something about a belt rebrand before the end of the year. I mean, it's been 25 years. Feels like the UFC is ready to move on to a new chapter with the ESPN deal about to start. I'm looking forward to see if that's actually what it is.
I'd be down for a new belt design as long as it looks cool and it looks good. How about a custom belt for champions? Kind of like the Stone Cold Steve Austin skull belt that he used to carry around. How about that? Or the John Cena spinning belts. What do you think?
I have no idea what you're talking about. I have never seen
custom belts.
I do like the idea of belt rebrands every couple of years, though.
Like McGregor wins the belt, and he has like the fighting Irishman on the belt. No,
nah.
You're not buying this.
I'm not into that idea as much.
You didn't like this John Cena spinning belt, no.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
You're looking at me like I have 3 heads. Like you have no clue what I mean. It's like I'm not even speaking English. Like I went to speaking a whole different language on the show.
You can repeat it as many times as you want. I just don't know what you're talking about, so I don't know really what to say.
All right, let's move on from this talk.
All right.
Why are my comments not loading?
I got you. Next one's coming from Newfie on MMA Fighting, who wants to know about Cain Velasquez. The man is finally back. If Cain Velasquez comes back looking as good as he did a few decades ago, does he fight for the title in his next fight?
A few decades ago?
Hey, Newfie's bringing the heat. Does he fight for the title in his next fight if he beats Francis? And should he? So Cain Velasquez versus Francis Ngannou appears to be coming in 2019. That's
your hometown.
To my hometown. That is a hell of a fight, and I am glad to receive it here in Phoenix. Cain Velasquez obviously has some lineage here in Arizona. So, Marc, what do you think of that fight? And is a title fight next if Cain wins?
I think it's a very cool fight. I'm very into it. I think it is a title eliminator. It's the whole Velasquez saga is a strange one, and I think we're going to be talking about Dominick Cruz later on too, kind of in the same vein. It's been a very similar career trajectory for both of them, where they've reached the highest of highs in the UFC. They've been champion, and Velasquez, when he was in his reign as UFC champion, the second reign, he was thought of as probably the best UFC heavyweight champion of all time, or at least on that very, very short list. I think people were putting him up with Fedor, if not beyond Fedor, as the best MMA heavyweight of all time. But now he hasn't fought since UFC 200, right? That was the last time he fought Travis Brown.
Yeah.
That was a long time ago. I mean, we're talking about 2 John Jones comebacks ago. Since that's the last time Cain Velasquez fought.
Miesha Tate was champion.
Miesha Tate was the champion at that time. It was a long, long time ago. I don't know what to expect from Cain Velasquez. If he's even 75% of what he was, he's a guy that can win the heavyweight title tomorrow. I mean, he's that damn good. And this Ngannou matchup is very intriguing because it is another wrestler for Ngannou, so it's going to be a situation where he's going to have to get over those issues that he had against Stipe Miocic. This is trial by fire. He had Miocic, Curtis Blades, and now he's getting, well, he had Derek Lewis and that whole mishap too, but now he's getting Cain Velasquez. So we're going to find out a lot about Francis Ngannou in that fight, and we're going to find out a lot about where Cain Velasquez is in that fight as an elite heavyweight. I think it's safe to say that Ngannou is an elite heavyweight. He's certainly in that top tier, and the winner of that fight rightly should get a title shot. And who's going to be the heavyweight champion after March? If DC retires, if Cormier retires in March, as he plans on doing, I think that is certainly, if they should do some kind of like a tournament, another heavyweight fight alongside that somewhere on the calendar, and then the winners of those 2 fights, as soon as Cormier retires, if that is the plan indeed, those guys fight for the heavyweight title. I think Miocic has to be in that conversation too. I think I would not mind seeing the winner of that fight Stipe Miocic for the heavyweight title sometime, maybe next July, but sometime in the first half of next year.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the big picture ultimately, because I wouldn't have been surprised, and I actually expected before this was announced Cain to come back to the Stipe fight for the vacant title. I at this point he's been out so long that I kind of anticipated that whenever he would come back, it would be for that vacant title whenever Daniel Cormier drops it, and it would be against Stipe Miocic. This is a hell of a, I don't want to call this a tune-up fight because Francis Ngannou is no one's tune-up, but this is a hell of a get back into the game and try to stay warm fight for Cain Velasquez. And you're right, they're certainly not doing Francis Ngannou any favors. You thought he answered the wrestling question against Curtis Blades. They're throwing him in with an even tougher, more ridiculous wrestler with Cain Velasquez. I like this matchmaking, man. I like this matchmaking a lot because either way, regardless of who wins, you have a nice story set up for moving forward in the future. Either Cain Velasquez, the returning champion, once hailed, like you said, as one of the greatest heavyweights ever, maybe the greatest heavyweight ever, having been derailed so much, now coming back into a title fight against Stipe Miocic, who would be the other consideration for greatest heavyweight champion in UFC history. Or you get the Ngannou-Miocic rematch with Ngannou having proved by going through a gauntlet, a trial by fire against all these wrestlers, Curtis Blades, Cain Velasquez, that he can now handle what Stipe Miocic is bringing him. I love it, man. This is matchmaking at its finest, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's very good, and it's just a great fight. And also an interesting note is that if this does go down, and there are always going to be questions when Cain Velasquez is booked. Unfortunately, if he can make the fight, I'm gonna knock on wood in this wooden sauna here. If that does go down, Cain Velasquez will have fought in the main event, the first ever main event on Fox, and the first ever main event on ESPN. That would be a heck of a distinction, and even more notable considering just the amount of time that he's lost. He's there for the big ones, I guess. UFC 200, UFC on Fox 1, UFC on ESPN 1. Hey, if you're gonna have a milestone card, Cain Velasquez will show up. He may not be there for UFC some random number, but he'll be there for the first one.
That's a damn good point. Before we move on, give me an early feel for this. I know we haven't seen Cain much, and we don't really have an idea of where he's at. But me and you have both been hearing for months now that he's good to go. Like he's just been ready to go. Yep. What's your early feel for this fight, man?
I mean, it's so hard to say. So if we're judging by what we know of Cain Velasquez and what we know of Francis Ngannou, eliminating the time off and the injuries, which is very hard to do, I would favor Cain just because we've seen what he's done to strikers like Ngannou is. We've seen what he's done to Junior Dos Santos. That would be the best comparison, I guess, that that you would have between those. I know they're not the same fighter, and there are differences, but we've seen what Velasquez does to strikers, and you would imagine if he is near 100% of what he was then, and that again is not a guarantee, he should be able to beat Francis Ngannou. With that being said, Francis Ngannou has otherworldly power, and he could very easily end that fight in the first round, the second round, the third round, at any time. So I would favor Velasquez, but there's a huge question mark on that fight in my mind.
I agree.
In a good way, though, in a very good way. It's very intriguing.
Yeah, I agree with you. What's next?
All right, from the MMAfighting.com comments, Hefe01, referee cams. I know some of the Asian promotions still use the ref cam. How about a ref cam in the UFC and or Bellator? It could serve some unique insight to what the ref sees and could be an amazing learning/teaching tool for commissions. Refs have a tough job, but looking through their scope as opposed to have unlimited angles, which the viewing public has, might give people a better understanding of why certain calls were made. Thoughts?
I love this question. I agree with everything that Hefe is saying here, man. I mean, PFL just used the ref cam for certain events during their this past season. And I loved it, man. Seeing Frank Trigg out there with the ref cam, seeing what he's seeing through his eyes is very cool. And like Hefe says, you get a sense of what the referee is seeing, because we at home and even in the arena, we all have different angles. We're all watching different things. Being right there in the action is completely different experience. So I think it could be helpful as a learning tool, but also it could just be helpful as a tool to help make referees maybe more sympathetic figures, more human figures, where if people, because you know how this is online, people will hate on anything, spew hatred out for whatever reason. And if you at least get a sense of what this person's actual experiences of what they saw and what they were experiencing in the moment, I feel like that might lessen it to some degree, or at least give the referee some level of just some bridge, I guess, to cross for the fans to explain, you know, this is what I saw. This is kind of what I was going through. I love it, man. The old ref cams and Pride were so cool.
I like the idea of the ref cam, the way that Hefe is describing it as another layer to our learning and knowledge about MMA and the perspective of the referee. I don't love it as just another way to show a highlight or a replay. I don't love it as that, but I do love it the way Hefe and you painted it as, hey, let's see what the ref actually saw in this moment where, you know, we all saw from our great angle on TV that this should have been a knockout, or should have been a stoppage, or it shouldn't have been a stoppage. What did the referee see? Where it's people don't understand, like you said, how difficult that job is in real time with the speed of things happening in the octagon. And the referee is there and has to react on a split-second notice, or the opponent faces terrible injury, or scorn, or he or she faces scorn from fans. So I like it in that respect, but I don't want to see the ref cam like during live action ever. I never want to see like the regular camera angle of a fight and then they go to the ref cam. I never ever want to see that live, like in real time. But as a method of instruction and information, like as an added layer of that for fans to see what referees see in important moments, I do like that a lot. How about a judge cam? Let's see what these judges are looking at. What are they seeing from their perspective? Is it really that different? And it is in some cases a different view than we're getting at home. A lot of the judges, sometimes they don't have a monitor, or it's very hard to see, you know, where they're, you know, what it is. I'm not saying always use that, and I'm kind of being, you know, tongue in cheek a little bit here, but I do like the idea of added tools that to take us inside the regulatory system of MMA. I mean, I'm always in favor of someone like a Harold Letterman doing like the rounds, like scoring the rounds every round. I like that a lot. I think that there should be a separate person to score the rounds, not the commentator scoring the rounds, because it's very hard to commentate and try to actually score the rounds by the unified rules. It's hard to like analyze what's happening in the action and also score the fight. I would love someone to be there to just be the Harold Letterman person, like boxing has, to in between rounds say, hey, this guy won, you know, 10-9. This is why, real quick. I would love that.
I hate to tell you this, Mark, but I think our stream is down. People are telling me the stream is down.
What?
So if anybody's been watching this still, apologies for the technical difficulties. We are trying to figure this out at the moment.
Wait, Alex K. Lee is saying that we're back. Are we back?
Are we back? Someone talk to us on Twitter and let us know if this is working.
For all of our technological faults, we really haven't had an issue with the stream like just going down. We've had some glitches here and there, but we've never really had it go down.
Yeah, it's been smooth sailing for the most part. Someone let us know what's going on. It seems as though it's back. Okay, people are telling us it's back.
All right, we're back.
All right. Well, hey, we apologize for that. Hopefully that is a one-time thing. As Mark said, I think that's actually the first time the stream's gone all the way down over the several months we've been doing this.
Yeah. So basically what I was saying, basically what I was saying when we went down.
You guys basically missed Mark talking for 4 minutes.
Which is completely fine because I was just talking some nonsense. I was just saying that I like the idea of the ref cam as an instructional tool and a learning and educational tool to see what the referee is seeing on controversial calls. I don't like it as the live fight. Hey, let's go to the ref cam real quick during the live fight. I hate that. And I mean, sometimes it's okay for like a highlight to see what the ref was seeing during a knockout, but mainly I like it as a way to see what the ref is seeing to get in there to get their perspective as to what in a controversial stoppage. That's what I like about it.
Yeah. So apologies again about the stream going down. It seems as though
that happens.
It's straight. Hey, this is the first time for everything. It seems as though it's kind of fixed itself. Hopefully that is a one-time thing. Let us know if it happens again and we will try to fix it. I mean, obviously we are not that it's unfortunate. People are telling us the stream sucks today. I don't know why. It's the same setup as always, but we will try to persevere. In the meantime, Mark, we have some breaking news.
Oh yeah? What do we got?
So MMA Junkie reporting that Jon Jones has decided not to participate in the VADA program for UFC 232. So this literally just broke. We're still working on confirming that, but if that is in fact true, what are your thoughts?
I did hear that this morning from sources, but I had not confirmed it fully yet. I heard from a few sources. I was still waiting to hear back from Jones' team. Did Jones' team comment to MMA Junkie?
I have not. I do not believe the story is up yet. Oh, maybe it is.
I think it is.
Yeah, it is. Do not see a comment from them.
Yeah, I did hear that from sources. I reached out yesterday to Jon Jones' attorney, Howard Jacobs, and I did not hear back as to what the deal is. I did hear that he has not enrolled in VADA yet. I don't know if that means he's not going to, but time is kind of ticking as far as the fight goes. If he were to be tested before the fight by VADA like today, maybe they can get the test back in time before next week, but I don't know. I'm not entirely surprised by this development. He is already being tested by USADA. I don't know necessarily if their team wanted additional testing. They probably feel like, hey, he's already been tested by USADA. Why are we doing this again? He's already been tested positive by USADA twice. Is VADA going to find something different? I don't know. I mean, that's probably his team's perspective if I had to guess. But I'm not entirely surprised by this development.
I am not surprised whatsoever. I mean, I think anybody who is watching the live stream, the MMA fighting live stream of that commission meeting, could tell that they were taken by surprise about that request, and that they didn't particularly appear anxious to jump on Commissioner Martha Chen. I believe that's her name, right?
Martha Chen Urquidez.
Yeah, her request for this VADA testing. God, 1 second. People are telling me the stream is still screwing up. Hopefully it's not. This is getting a little frustrating. Sorry, guys. But yeah, I can't say I'm surprised at all. It was a good try by the California State Athletic Commission, though. I mean, trying to put Jones on the spot like that, you could tell pretty immediately, though, that they weren't really feeling it.
Yeah, and you know what? I can't completely kill Jon Jones for not doing that. I can't really criticize him too much because, again, he's already in a program where he's getting tested pretty often by USADA. Would VADA make a difference? I guess the argument that the commissioner made last week was that, well, USADA is affiliated with the UFC. There's a financial tie. VADA is not affiliated with the UFC. So if you really want to prove that you are completely clean, then go into a program that has no kind of financial tie to the UFC. But with that being said, USADA has already popped John Jones twice. So we've already seen him fail USADA drug test twice. So I don't know. I mean, I can't kill him too much for not joining up with VADA. Again, it is voluntary. That's the V in VADA. It's voluntary. If you don't want to do it, you don't have to do it. Yeah. It wasn't a provision of him getting his license back.
Yeah, and they made sure to note that as well, that it wasn't a mandatory thing. They just wanted to put it out there for him. Next up, coming from the MMA Fighting page from the Daffmeister. I think I said that. The Daffmeister? I don't know. The DC Felder commentary team. Last weekend was some of the greatest MMA commentary I have heard in my 5 years of watching the sport now. High praise. Wow. Having Felder do the majority of the commentary when they were striking and DC when they were grappling. And oh my God, the flow with which they transitioned between each other was pure magic. Not only do they have knowledge that complements their partners, but they are also naturally able to sense when to build on what the other just said last weekend, or made last weekend a standout joy to follow. Cruz is my favorite single commentator, as creates those arrow and graphic. This is getting difficult. As creates those arrow and graphics, the others get the editors to apply and post with his words. But DC Felder might just be my favorite duo if last weekend wasn't a rare one-off. I as difficult as that question was to read, I must say I agree generally with the sentiment. I've really enjoyed the Paul Felder DC commentary duo, along with John Anik as well, who was always the good glue guy there to keep everything together. But those two played off each other's strengths exceptionally well.
Oh yeah, I completely agree. I really dug DC and Felder a lot as a duo. I think that may be one of the stronger three-man boosts the UFC has had so far for commentary. I like that a lot. I think that there are a lot of fighters who are making good analysts and making good color commentators these days. I'm looking forward to Michael Bisping getting more reps as a color commentator on ESPN next year, like he said he would. He was doing Contender Series the last summer, and I thought he was very good on Contender Series. Felder obviously was on Contender Series. He did very well, and he's made the move up to the pay-per-views. So yeah, I'm all about that combination. It was hilarious when DC was busting Felder's chops early on in the night, saying he's just as beautiful in person as he is on television. I didn't know DC was into gingers, but hey, I mean, everyone has their type. But no, those guys were great together. And they had chemistry right off the bat, even though I don't know, they had never done that before, and I don't know if they're really friends or anything, but they had really good chemistry right off the bat.
Yeah, they both played off each other very well, and they're both just generally very very good in that space, right? And I think that's kind of one of the sneaky, interesting aspects of the last couple of years of the Fox deal, is they've really cultivated from the ground up a team of very solid fighter turned broadcasters. A lot of these guys who are still currently competing. These two, Dominick Cruz, Michael Bisping, who's obviously retired. A lot of these guys have very slowly come up from event to event, from small events to now pay-per-views and big Fox shows. And you could tell they've really grown into the spot, man. It was like this guy said, it was a joy to watch, or listen to, I should say.
I think a lot of it too is just DC. I think DC is very charismatic, and if you just go with the flow with him, he will make you look better. He's actually a great. He's almost like a great point guard in a sense. I mean, he makes everyone around him better. And I think that's a big part of it. I mean, I did that video with him in Calgary with him and Bisping when they went down the luge, the bobsled, and DC even made me look good, and that's a very hard thing to do, to make me seem entertaining. I try to do it. He's a really easy guy on camera to kind of go back and forth with. He's just so good. He's so charismatic. He's excellent.
You're right. That is a really difficult thing to do. I try to do it every week, and I fail spectacularly trying to make you seem entertaining.
You're no DC, Shaun. You're no Daniel Cormier.
Hey man, that's fair. I did my first ever preview show earlier this year in terms of hosting duties with DC for
that's right,
Dustin Poirier versus Justin Gaethje, and I was nervous going into that just because I had never hosted before, and he just made it easy for me. He is. You're right. He is great to play off of.
Yeah, he's great. Let's move on to the next MMAfighting.com question from Mars209. What? Dom Cruz. Cruz claims he's the best bantamweight of all time because of his injuries. I'd have to disagree. How can someone claim to be the best when he can't even show up? Where do you guys fall in fighters like Cruz or Velasquez, who are heralded as the best, but are notorious for not showing up on fight night?
Yeah, man, this Dominick Cruz thing is really unfortunate. We talked a little bit briefly about this last week, but it's been more. There's more out there now about what happened with him and the shoulder injury and how long he's going to be out. It seems like he's going to be out another year. It's rough, man. It's really rough, and it's unfortunate to see him and Cain Velasquez get lumped into that sort of group together. But it is fitting because you're right. Both of these guys were guys that are still guys that are talked about as all-time greats, but they could have been like beyond that, like the greatest in their respective divisions. And I feel like it's getting hard to call Dominick the greatest bantamweight ever at this point. Like, he has a very long track record. He had a great run in WEC, and his early UFC run was great as well. And his comeback was incredible, frankly. Like, his comeback, beating TJ Dillashaw and then Uriah Faber back to back after sitting out so long, was one of the more incredible things I've seen in this sport. But it just, you feel for the guy, man. You feel for the guy, especially when you hear him talk, because he is so ultra self-aware about how this has affected him, about it has affected his legacy, about how it's just affected his body and just the state of his body at this point in his career. You feel for him, man. You really do. It's unfortunate.
I get why people don't want to say that he's the best bantamweight of all time, but I still feel like he is.
Right now he is. Yeah. But I feel like he is this close to getting replaced by a TJ Dillashaw or something.
I think one or two more defenses of the title for Dillashaw, and he puts himself right there. But let's not forget, Dominick Cruz's resume is incredible. I mean, just take out, the missed time. He's 22-2. Which is a ridiculous record. He defended the WEC or UFC bantamweight title 5 times, which Dillashaw has not yet done. He only had that run where he lost to Faber in 2007, and he didn't lose again until Garbrandt in 2016. Now, yes, he was out for some time during those years, but this is a guy that came back from just almost potentially career-ending injuries and a long 4-year layoff, and he came back and beat TJ Dillashaw for the belt. That was one of the best moments of that year in 2016. So I think for me, he's still the best bantamweight if you look at the whole body of work, if you look at the resume. But Dillashaw is right on his heels, and he'll have a chance. It won't be a bantamweight fight, of course, against Cejudo in Brooklyn in a few weeks on January 19th. But Dillashaw is right there, of course. But I look, it's not. It's one of those things like, how much do you hold the injuries against him? Because it isn't like Dominick Cruz is out there trying to get injured, or he's making mistakes, or he's failing drug tests, or he's getting arrested. It isn't like that. He's just getting hurt training. It's not necessarily his fault. So how much do you hold that against him? Certainly, it has to be held against him a little bit. And his time as the best bantamweight of all time is probably that window is closing, probably. But he also can still come back and reel off a few more wins and solidify it. So it's hard to say, but the whole thing is really just a bummer. It just sucks that someone that great can't fight on a consistent basis and can't make money on a consistent basis too, because this is how those guys make their income. Velasquez, Cruz, those guys have lost out on millions of dollars with these injuries.
Yeah, I remember Cruz lost out on being on the Chael Sonnen versus Anderson Silva pay-per-view, which would have made him a giant payday, because obviously he gets pay-per-view points. It's really unfortunate, man. And it's an illustration. It's a further illustration, yet another one. We don't need more of these, but yet another one of just how quickly this game can really change and how volatile this sport is, man. Because from 2005 to 2011, Dominick Cruz was as active as any person in the entire sport. He was fighting multiple times a year, and he was more or less winning. He maybe lost a couple along the way, but he was just winning and beating everybody. And then all of a sudden, it just fell apart. Everything just fell apart. And I will say, though, one of my sneaky, most memorable moments of my career of just watching this sport and being there for it was being there I think it was UFC 178 when he had been out for 3 years. And he'd come back. It was like he didn't even want to be on the main card. He wanted to be on the undercard, and he was fighting Takeo Mizugaki. And he walked out to How I Could Just Kill a Man by Cypress Hill, which starts, let me just reintroduce myself. And it was just one of the coolest walkouts. And then he knocked him out in like 61 seconds. And the emotion that just flooded out of Dominick Cruz after that knockout was incredible to watch. And it's just, he can't stay in there, man. You really can't stay in there, and it's unfortunate. And hey, it is what it is. But I really do feel like if he's not able to compete for 2019, and TJ Dillashaw is able to defeat Henry Cejudo, and then move back up to bantamweight and defend his title once, he probably takes that title as the greatest bantamweight ever, even after losing a split decision, a very close split decision to Dom, which is unfortunate.
All right, let's move on to another MMAfighting.com comments from Dizzy Dwarf. One of our favorites, Shaun. A true or false question.
Oh,
you ready? You ready for this?
Always ready for these.
True or false? UFC 232 does over 500,000 pay-per-view buys. True or false?
Oh man. 500,000 would be a really good number.
Yeah.
Because the first Jones Gustafson fight did not sell that particularly well.
No, in an era where fights on average sold better, it did not do well.
I do feel like the allure of John Jones coming back once more always is a thing, and Chris Cyborg is also a nice co-headliner. I'm gonna say true. I think this could pull like 550 or 600.
I will say false.
Where's the range? Where you put
probably be 300, 400 range, I think.
All right,
well, I would say in the 400s.
Next one.
Flyweight division dissolved in 2019. True or false?
Got to be true. It feels like the writing's on the wall at this point. So many guys are getting cut or moving up in weight. This is true.
I would say true, but I don't know if it'll be fully dissolved. I could see them kind of keeping it around the way they have the women's featherweight division, if that makes sense, where they don't really have rankings for women's featherweight. They don't really have a ton of women's featherweight fights, but they have a champion at women's featherweight, and they kind of pick and choose and have a few fights here and there and set up title fights for Cyborg. I can see them doing that for Cejudo or for Dillashaw. I don't know, but I mean, mostly true. The division as we know it is probably done for now in the UFC. True or false? 165-pound division added by end of 2019.
False. I wish it was true.
Really?
I would like to say true, but I feel like it's false. It's going to take a lot for Dana White to be convinced that this is a good idea.
I'm going to say true. I think it will. I think it will get added before the end of the year. I do. I think they need belts. They need titles badly to headline pay-per-views, and there's going to be more pressure on them in 2019 to put big fights on ESPN, big ESPN, and even ESPN Plus. So I believe that they will add that division maybe even sooner rather than later.
They've needed belts for a long time, my friend. I feel like
they're going to need it even more in 2019, man. They're going to need it even more.
I feel like Dana White has dug his heels in on this one. I wish I was wrong, but I like the idea of you willing this into existence with your true.
I mean, it's purely speculation. I have no insider info, but I do feel like it'll happen. True or false? GSP fights in 2019.
I'm going to say false, but if it's true, I bet it's like a November or December type of situation at the end of the year.
I'm going to say false. That's a hard one to predict because we just don't know. We just don't know anything about how I think he wants that Khabib fight.
He only wants that Khabib fight. Yeah, that's the only fight that would get him back.
Right, exactly. So, I mean, maybe it doesn't make sense right now because we were just talking about how great the lightweight division is. So it doesn't make sense from that perspective, but I think Khabib does want it and GSP wants it. So I'll never say never, but I just think there's a lot we don't know about when Khabib's going to fight next because of this commission situation and all those contenders, possibly out there. So I'm gonna say false, but I mean, yeah, it certainly could happen. True or false? Daniel Cormier versus John Jones 3 happens. True or false?
I'm gonna say false. I think he rides off into the sunset after beating Brock.
I'm gonna say false also. I don't know if that Brock fight is gonna happen, man. I just don't know if it's gonna happen. I also don't know if DC goes back to 205.
I hope he doesn't.
I don't think he should. But he might, because look, he's a pretty stubborn guy. He might go to 205 and try to fight Jones again for a third time there. Could it happen at heavyweight? I don't know if Jones wants that. So I could also see DC wanting to just only fight John at 205 because he wants to prove that he can beat him there. I don't know. I'm gonna say false, but I could still see it happening. I could still see it happening.
Only way that fight happens at heavyweight is if UFC gives John Jones the bag, just backs up the Brinks truck. Like, they would have to offer him so much money.
Which, by the way, they should. They should. Give him whatever he wants. I mean, that's an amazing fight. I mean,
it would be an incredibly fitting conclusion to a rivalry that I think has defined this era of MMA.
Absolutely. And you know what? I don't even think it's a. I mean, it's not a lose-lose for Jones either. You know. Even if he were to swipe
a phrase from Nate Diaz, he steals everything DC's been working for on the way out too. It's literally the ultimate way to spit in DC's face on the way out, is just to take everything that his legacy is.
Right. For Jones, I feel like the reward would be worth the risk, because if he does win, all those things that you said are true. And if he loses, he can still, you beat me at, that's not even my weight class. Like, you beat me in a weight class that is not mine. You know, it's, you're much bigger, you know? I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it'll happen, but I feel like it's not a crazy, I feel like the reward outweighs the risk for Jones in that case, because it would be a pretty hefty reward.
Yeah.
And then no one can doubt John Jones as being the best of all time. I don't think anyone should doubt it now, but if he were to beat DC at heavyweight, you can't doubt it.
Oh, then he's the unassailable GOAT, and it's just like the PED suspensions are just part of his story at that point.
True or false? The Nevada State Athletic Commission decided on Khabib's and Conor's punishment at the next meeting, or they will decide. I mean, true or false?
I think true, but I think they'll figure out something before that. They usually, with these type of situations, they usually come to some form of agreement before the actual meeting. So I think that'll get settled within the next meeting.
Excuse me.
Bless you.
Hey, sorry. I tried to mute the sneeze, and it didn't work. I'm like the FS1 sensor on Nate Diaz, and only half works. I think true, but like you said, they will come to some kind of a settlement agreement, and they'll probably just end up announcing at the meeting and having the commissioners all vote on the settlement agreement at the meeting. There won't be a long disciplinary hearing like we saw with like a Nick Diaz marijuana suspension type deal. It'll be something that's already decided, and the commissioners will vote on it, most likely approve it. That is my guess.
All right. Well, hey, good round of true or false. Let's keep it going. We got a ton of questions today. This next one's coming from the MMA Fighting page from Unstable Puppet, who wants to know about Jack Swagger, aka Jake Hager. Yeah. What do you make of his upcoming Bellator debut? Do you think he has a legit chance, or will we end up going the CM Punk route? While we are on this subject, what current WWE superstars do you think could make the crossover into MMA? I'm just thrilled about this question. So I will say, before I throw this floor to you, because you know much more about this subject than me, any pro wrestlers making the crossover, if I was one of those guys, I'll go Bellator 100 times out of 100. In the UFC, you get thrown to the Mickey Galls of the world. In Bellator, they're going to set you up with a fight that maybe you could actually win. So I think Jack Swagger, Jake Hager made the correct decision in going to Bellator, but floor is yours, Mark.
Yeah, so Jake Hager he's more Brock Lesnar than CM Punk. If that makes any sense. CM Punk came into the UFC with literally no fighting experience whatsoever. The guy never had a fight before. He never competed in combat sports in his life. He had some training in like Kenpo and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but no fight experience. Jake Hager, on the other hand, Jack Swagger, as wrestling fans would know him, he was a decorated wrestler at the University of Oklahoma, and he played football. He's a fantastic athlete. He was an All-American. He was a great heavyweight wrestler at Oklahoma. So he has that pedigree already. So he's not going into a completely foreign environment, which CM Punk was going into. This is not a it's an incongruous comparison. Jake Hager is going to at least have the wrestling on his side. Now, will that translate into excellence in MMA? You don't know. I mean, who really knows? What I will say is he's a great athlete. He was a great wrestler in college. That was granted more than 10 years ago, but obviously he's going to be still training and working on that. And he's enormous. I mean, he is a big man. He's 6'7". He's listed as 6'7". He's probably a little closer to 6'5", but he's a big man. He's listed as like 275 pounds. So he'll probably be cutting weight to 265. So he'll have the size, he'll have athleticism, he'll have wrestling. So in the heavyweight division in Bellator, they're gonna give him some matchups that make sense, and he's probably gonna win a few fights. That is my guess, and we'll see where it goes from there. We'll see how good he is, but I think certainly more Brock than CM Punk. I think there's potential. As far as what WWE stars can make the transition to MMA, I mean, that's hard to say. How about Ronda Rousey? I think that she may make a pretty decent UFC fighter down the road. Once wrestling is done, she's really good at wrestling. Maybe down the road when that's over, she can make the crossover into MMA. I can see. She was. I don't know if you knew this, but she was an Olympian in judo, bronze medalist in judo. So I could see her possibly maybe fighting one day if she so desires. Not sure if she really needs to because she's doing so well in WWE. This guy Matt Riddle too, who's really athletic in WWE. I think that he could possibly one day has some background in training. I think he could be pretty good one day. I think those two would be my and maybe Brock Lesnar. I think Brock Lesnar might be a guy that Shayna Baszler comes to mind. These are all
right.
Maybe one day.
All right.
You get it. As far as people who have not been in the UFC, I want to see the man. I want to see the man in the UFC. Becky Lynch, bring her in. The man in the UFC. She's done some training at SBG Ireland with John Kavanagh. They've been working on something on Twitter. She's going back there for the holidays. I want to see Becky Lynch get a fight in the UFC. That's what I want.
All right.
You're not buying it.
Well, hey, you get a little bit more because this next question is coming from D. Piercy. Sorry. On MMA fighting, you guys really killing me today. Zuka, Becky, Charlotte, TLC match. Mark, what did you think of this match? I saw it the day after and thought it was great. Wasn't quite the epic match I had read the morning after. Still great, though, and I was very happy for Zuka. MMA! Exclamation point. Thanks. So that is the last wrestling question of the day, but I will give you exactly 60 seconds to give us your review of this match.
By the way, it's Asuka, not Asuka.
Sorry.
Asuka. The U is like kind of a very light U in Japanese. Anyway, very good match. Very physical match. Very dangerous match. It was a ladder match. Did you see any clips of this from Sunday? TLC match. There was one spot where the two of the women were on the announce table, and Becky Lynch jumped off a ladder and landed just butt first onto Charlotte Flair's midsection, and it broke the table. I mean, she landed flush with her entire body weight on Charlotte Flair's midsection. It was awful. It looked like it was painful. I don't know how she didn't break a rib or two. It was brutal. But yeah, very fun match, very physical, and I think it's really awesome that the women are the best part of the show in WWE. Rousey's doing great on Raw, and this was a SmackDown match. The women are stealing the show, and their matches are great. They're physical, they're violent. I mean, it's really impressive. I think it's cool. I mean, watching the UFC, we know that women's fights can sometimes be more violent and exciting than men's fights, and that is transferring over to WWE. and pro wrestling, which always in Japan that was the case, but now WWE is finally giving the women the chance, and I think it's great.
All right, that is Marc Raimondi's 60-second review of whatever that match was. So we're gonna move on. Next up, let's skip a couple because they're repetitive. Talking about Francis Ngannou and Cain, we already hit that. So let's go to BCG 347 on the MMA Fighting page, who wants to know about Kevin Lee's performance. So we talked a lot about Iaquinta. Let's talk a little about Kevin Lee. Did you guys notice a drop off in Kevin Lee's performance against Al? He seemed slower and less energetic than he was against Barboza, similar to when he was gassed out in the Ferguson fight. Seems like the weight cut might be getting too much for him, or too tough for him. And yeah, man, I mean, there was obviously other factors in that fight. He was getting hit with that jab by Iaquinta quite a bit, and he was getting hit with a lot of shots. And that was a grueling fight in general, but it really does feel as though Kevin Lee's time at 155 is getting numbered, man. Like he spoke to our own Luke Thomas on the MMA Hour. I think the couple days before the fight, he said that his weight was something like 20 pounds over or 25 pounds over, or just like it was a crazy number. And it's just like, man, he's one of those guys where his entire week is focused around the weight as opposed to just like mentally preparing for the fight. And at a certain point, I don't know that you can continue that and keep up a high level of just being able to do this at a high level. He's in his mid-20s, and as he gets older, this is going to get harder and harder. This does not get easier. He's one of the guys who has always talked about a 165-pound division. He was leading this before people were even talking about it. He was talking about this before it was cool to talk about this. It feels as though his time is numbered at 155, man, and I don't know that he's big enough for 170. So he's kind of just one of these guys trapped in the middle.
Yeah, I think he's big enough for 170. I think he could fight at that weight. I do think 165 he's a, for whatever that's worth, or whatever that means, he's a natural 165er. It is a very tough cut from to get to 155. I did speak to his nutritionist Tyler Minton yesterday, and apparently the cut went well, and everything was on the up and up, and Lee was healthy. I feel like you can't discount Al Iaquinta in this equation, you know? I feel like Kevin Lee maybe didn't look as good because Iaquinta did look that good. And I don't want to take any credit away from Iaquinta. I think Lee looked really good the first 3 rounds. I thought he looked strong. I thought his wrestling and his grappling were good. He had, like you said earlier on in the show, he had Iaquinta in some really, really tough positions where in other fights against other opponents, maybe Kevin Lee finishes that rear naked choke early on in the fight. Maybe that happens. Didn't happen against Iaquinta. And I think after that happened, I think that Iaquinta showing that resilience. I don't know if Lee was able to battle back from that adversity. It was almost like Lee in the first 3 rounds, he had those opportunities, and once those were done, it was almost like he was done, and Iaquinta took over the fight. The momentum had swung so far to Al's side. Now, is that a cardio issue? That's possible. That's possible because Lee did have he dominated Barboza earlier this year, but he had some trepidation. There were some moments in that fight where Barboza hurt him, and he had to recover, and he had to get better. And it could be just a case where Iaquinta is a better defensive grappler than Barboza. He staved off that Lee wrestling and that Lee those submissions, and was able to win the fight. And I don't want to say that Lee looked worse. I think that Iaquinta just looked great. That's my take on it.
Yeah, although I will say, man, you even mentioned it there in your discussion of it, that he looked great for the first 3 rounds and then came out for the 4th and he didn't look as good. I feel like that's kind of a pattern with him, and I think that his ceiling in this division is going to be topped. His ceiling is always going to be how well he is able to get ready for those championship rounds, and that really just comes down to the cardio and being able to go as long as he needs to. And man, I looked it up, and he was 170. He said he was 174 on Monday before the fight. That's a giant cut, man. And that's even before, that's after cutting all the pre-cut stuff. Because he doesn't start at 174. He starts heavier than that.
Oh, yeah.
It's just not sustainable, man. And I mean, you notice it during the fight. He comes out for the 4th round just looking kind of gassed. And yes, the first 3 rounds were very grueling, but at the championship level, at the world-class highest level, you cannot go into the 4th round gas. You have to be able to keep that pace for 5 rounds, and it sucks. It really is one of these situations where he is basically the poster child for 165, where the need for 165, because you're right, he is a natural 165er. I hope he's able to figure something out, man, because I don't know that the solution is going to be given to him anytime soon. He's going to have to either slim down or just move up. And he even talked about maybe moving up for his next one.
Yeah, and I mean, I wouldn't be against that. I would not be against that at all.
Yeah.
Moving on.
What's next?
From Empire Over, from the MMAfighting.com comments, with all the negativity and disinterest in taking fights, this is about the Diaz brothers, is it time for the UFC to cut the Diaz brothers and let them take their talents to Bellator? Side note, if not an outright UFC release, who could the UFC trade them for? Should they even consider it at all?
Oh, I like the idea of trades for them. That's interesting. So Nick Diaz is not fighting Jorge Masvidal, it appears, in which we discussed, several weeks ago. I mean, that fight was never actually booked. That was more something that Dana White wanted. And even I think 2 weeks ago at UFC 231, Dana White was on record saying that as far as he knew, that fight was on, but it was never really on. That's just, again, him trying to be a promoter and propel that fight into existence. And it sucks, man, because we were supposed to get Nate Diaz this year. We didn't get Nate Diaz. We were supposed to get Nick Diaz next year. We were not going to get Nick Diaz. It's unfortunate because these guys are so cool to watch. These guys are great to just have in the sport. Their style's tremendous. Their personalities are tremendous. And they've wanted the UFC to cut them for a long time. They've asked for releases how many times? How many times has Nate Diaz even just tweeted, cut me? Like, it's just never going to happen, because the moment they get cut, Bellator or one championship, or probably not one championship, but Bellator or
I don't think one. Maybe Ryzen. Yeah,
Ryzen. That would be a great idea. All of these guys are going to open their checkbooks to the Diaz brothers because that's how much they're worth. They still generate an obscene amount of interest for two guys who have not fought in a combined 2015, 2016. So 7 years, 6 years. Like, that's crazy, man. But the idea of a trade would be good. Bellator would have to give up a lot. Like, what would be enough what would be a big enough asset, in your opinion, to get the Diaz brothers, or even one of them?
I don't think Bellator has anything.
Aaron Pico would probably be my only.
Aaron Pico. It's like if you're like the general manager of an MLB team, and you're looking to discharge like some stars who are maybe not performing the way you want them to the way the Diaz brothers are. You go for that blue chip prospect to get back in return, and that would be Aaron Pico. But honestly, those guys, I mean, you put Nate Diaz on pay-per-view and he sells a ton. I mean, who on Bellator's roster, all due respect to Bellator, who on Bellator's roster can you say that about? You put him as the B side or as the A side on a pay-per-view, and they sell 300,000 pay-per-view buys or above. Who? I don't think there's anybody out there. Fedor? I don't even know. Maybe Chael Sonnen, maybe.
Not in 2018, Chael Sonnen.
Maybe not. But to me, he's still they're probably their biggest draw. Who else is there? I mean, they have really good fighters there, but they don't have that huge pay-per-view draw.
Yeah, I mean, even this weekend we saw Michael Chandler and Ilima-Lei McFarland, two of the bigger names in Bellator fight, and the ratings came back and they were not particularly great for those events. So it's just, you're right, man. And I just want to see the Diaz brothers back.
Of course. Honestly, the Diaz brothers are actually more valuable to the UFC on the sidelines than they are if they were to trade them away and then go fight for someone else and draw big ratings for a Bellator or big ratings for someone else.
Yeah.
The UFC for the most part, outside of that whole the Askren thing, they pretty much have everyone they want. Right?
Yeah.
They are, I mean, they're still kind of the judge, jury, and executioner. Like they could have tried harder to keep Sage Northcutt and Gegard Mousasi and some of these people who have left in recent years. They have everyone they want. There's really nothing that Bellator or anyone can offer them to get the Diaz brothers, because I don't think there's anyone worth as much as them, and they'd rather them be on the sidelines and help their competitor.
Yeah.
So. Okay.
Well, hopefully 2019 brings different stories and we get some Diaz brothers action in 2019, because I am missing it. I'm not going to lie.
I mean, the alternative is, hey, maybe pay them what they want to be paid, or actually have a good faith negotiation and give them for the most part what they deserve and have them fight and have them in big fights for you next year. That's also an option. That's not the worst idea ever, you know?
It seems like wishful thinking.
I know it's not easy dealing with the Diaz brothers. It's not easy, but you know what? That's okay for me. It shouldn't be easy to negotiate. Fighters should use their leverage if they have it, and those guys have leverage. They're willing to sit out. Most fighters aren't willing to sit out, so they'll just take the deal. They're willing to sit out. They'll do it. So you got to come correct.
Come correct. Look at you, Marc Raimondi. All right. Well, hey, let's move on to Twitter. We don't have a lot of time, so we'll try to get through as many tweets as possible. You guys have been hitting us with a ton of questions, and we appreciate it. So first up, this one's coming from Laz Nikolovsky. Good job. Hey, guys. Anderson Silva saying that he wants to fight Conor does not sit well with me. I agree with you, Laz. Sure, he wants to make money. I think it further taints his legacy. What are your thoughts? Love the show. Thanks. So I agree 100% with this man. I think it's absurd for Anderson Silva to continually try to keep calling out Conor. I understand why he's doing it. He wants a big payday. But calling for a 180-pound catchweight fight with a guy who is a featherweight or a lightweight, probably a lightweight, seems very silly to me. I know you love this fight, so I'll give you the floor.
It's amazing. What a dream fight that is. I love it. I don't know why.
Dream fight. Jesus.
It's a dream. Yes. Look, Anderson Silva is one of the greatest fighters of all time. One of the most impressive, creative, beautiful strikers of all time in MMA. And Conor McGregor is an incredible striker in his own right. Granted, a much smaller man, but look, when the UFC was founded, there were no weight classes. It was open weight. We enjoyed that. It was good. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with this? If they can come to an 180-pound catch weight, why would you stand in their way? That's a fun fight. That's a fun fight.
When the UFC was founded, there was like two guys who actually knew how to fight. There were people wearing one boxing glove in the ring. Like it was.
Those were the good old days. What are you talking about? Those.
Sure. But it was open weight for a reason. Now you got trained killers who understand every aspect of this. You're going to try to open weight it now? Come on, man.
I'm not saying add an open weight division, although, wouldn't be upset. But this fight in particular, if a commission sanctions it and it's at 180 pounds, the catch weight, I'm down. Why not? It would be fun.
Nate Diaz.
Come on. Would that not be cool? Imagine it.
No.
Conor McGregor on one side of the octagon. Anderson Silva on the other side of the octagon. That is crazy and awesome.
Anderson Silva towering over Conor McGregor. Nate Diaz gave Conor struggles with his size. Anderson Silva is a much larger man than Nate Diaz. Nate Diaz struggled at welterweight because of the size. Come on, man. This is ridiculous.
Conor McGregor sparred the Mountain from Game of Thrones. He can fight Anderson Silva.
We're moving on.
I don't get. Is that not fun? Is that not fun?
No, it's not. It's not fun.
What?
Not fun.
What are you talking about? How is that not fun? Tell me how that's not fun.
All right. Next question's coming from Brian.
No, I will not let you off the hook.
It's not fun to watch a giant man beat a
You think Anderson just destroys him? Is what you're saying?
He is 3 weight classes above. Yes, I do think that.
He's 43 years old. I wouldn't say in his prime do it, but he's 43 years old. I think it's an interesting fight for an aging fighter against a smaller man who's in his athletic prime. I think there's some interest there.
Well, Conor McGregor is out, and Anderson's probably going to get beaten very bad by Israel Adesanya. Another fight that I don't like that you, for some reason, like. So when Anderson Silva gets beaten very bad by Israel Adesanya, I don't want you on this show telling me about other fun fights that Anderson Silva should be in.
But you just said that Silva would beat Conor. So if he gets beaten badly like you think he will against Adesanya, why would you not want to see him in an easier fight against Conor McGregor?
What are you talking? That logic makes no sense.
No, you're saying you don't like. This is your logic. You're saying you don't like Silva versus Adesanya because you think Silva will he'll get beaten badly, right?
Yes.
But you don't like Silva versus McGregor because you think Silva is going to beat him badly. Is that right? Is that your logic?
It's almost as though I don't like matchups that are pretty obvious from the get-go in terms of who's going to actually just beat the crap out of the other one.
Is it that obvious though? Is it that obvious?
3 weight classes.
Is it that obvious?
3 weight classes.
Is it
That's
three
like
weight classes though?
that's like you fighting Luke Thomas. Like, oh, I bet, yeah, that's a fun fight. I bet I know
who's
who's
3 weight classes. Silva's a middleweight and Conor is a lightweight. It's 2 weight classes.
Silva destroyed the 205-pound champion.
By the way,
not the current one.
McGregor has fought at 170. That's only 1 weight class apart.
McGregor has fought Nick Diaz at 170, and he struggled mightily, and he weighed like 164 pounds for it.
Different style of fight. Different. It's very different.
Yeah, it is. You're right.
There's a durability issue there. I don't know if Anderson Silva is as durable as Nate Diaz is at 43. What? Is that not true? You can't compare 2 people like that. It's not the same thing. You're trying to use like MMA math on this, and it doesn't apply. You can't apply MMA math to this weird like freak show matchup. There's no MMA math. It's just put 2 guys who want to fight each other into a cage. As long as it's safe for both of them, I'm down.
It is a waste of a fight for both men, and
it is such a cool fight.
I have nothing left to. I don't know what else to say to you, Marc Raimondi.
How is it a waste? It's so cool. It's such an interesting, fascinating matchup.
Well, I'm glad that it's never.
The fact that we're spending this much time talking about it means that there is.
It means you won't stop.
Something there.
It means you won't stop. That's what it means. Now I'm gonna keep going.
Fine, let's move on.
Brian Siskin wants to know: has it been proven now that there's no blueprint to UFC success? Considering Iaquinta has trashed the company and Dana, justifiably in my opinion, but I digress, and that's Brian's words, although I agree with him, and still managed to through merit to be a title contender. Trash talk and fuzzy capes seem to be on the way out. I don't know if trash talk and fuzzy capes seem to be on the way out, but it's certainly Iaquinta's path to being a legitimate top light heavy or lightweight contender is pretty unique. Marc, what do you think?
Oh yeah, it's surprising, and he's almost succeeded in spite of the things that he said about the UFC. He has pulled no punches when it comes to the UFC. I mean, he's cursed Dana White out on the air, like in public. In a way, I feel like that's helped him with the fans. Like he has achieved a bigger fan base while not fighting, just through his beef with the UFC. It's the management versus the talent thing. That storyline always plays. Certainly, and Al is very entertaining. Anytime you get him in an interview, he's a guy that people want to see talk and fight. He's just entertaining. He's fun. He's an interesting, fascinating guy, and it has engaged fans more. And somehow he's come out of the other side of this very well, unscathed. I mean, they did take away his bonuses at one point, although he got a bonus on Saturday. It seems like he's in good standing with the company despite tearing Dana White down. It's funny how it works, but he will do things that the UFC like taking that Khabib fight on short notice. Although they didn't like that he pulled out of the Gaethje fight, I'm sure they weren't happy about that. But he has done them solids in the past. And yeah, it's a funny thing, and I almost feel like they respect Al because he'll tell them to their face how he feels. He doesn't play around. Like he'll say the exact same thing to their face that he'll say on a TV program. I think they may even think he's a little bit crazy. I think I was talking to Ray Longo about this, and they think that Al may be a little bit off his ride. Maybe they're a little afraid. Maybe they're a little bit afraid about raging Al, but no, it's a really fun story. He's involved with Project Spearhead. He's on the board of the group trying to unionize fighters and collect authorization cards. Another wrinkle in this story. So the whole thing is one of the surprising stories of 2018. Yeah. What's next? All right, from Twitter machine, we got oh, here we go. Gilbert Hill. How come champions get to pick their fights? I thought the matchmaker's job was to match the champ up with a contender who can beat them. Why doesn't the UFC strip a champ if he refuses to defend against a top contender instead of a money fight? So I'm not entirely sure who this question is sort of based around. I can't think of any real champions right now that are picking their fights and getting them. Maybe TJ Dillashaw, but the UFC wanted that fight as well. Daniel Cormier is trying to fight Brock Lesnar.
Yeah, but the UFC wants that fight. That's not Daniel
Right.
Cormier picking that.
Which is what I would say to Gilbert Hill. That's actually not the matchmaker's job. That's not the matchmaker's job at all. The matchmaker's job is to build contenders build compelling contenders to possibly fight for the title. That is the matchmaker's job. It is the UFC's job to put together a title fight that is going to do the best business and have it make sense at the same time. That's really what their job is. And sometimes there are fights that will do better business than the ones that really make sense. And yeah, the UFC is going to do that kind of a super fight over others because they feel like it's going to make them the most money in the short term. That's what a business does. I mean, if you think you're going to make more money doing one thing and you're going to make less money doing the other thing, you're going to pick the thing most times that's going to make you the most money.
Yeah, and I would say that actually when champions historically have actually tried to pick their opponents, it generally doesn't work out for them. Like there's usually backlash in the UFC who doesn't really play that way. If you're a champion and you're trying to hold out for one fight over the other and they don't actually want that fight, you're not going to get it. You look at Tyron Woodley when he first became champion, he was trying so hard to get a GSP or a Nick Diaz fight, and eventually he just had to start fighting these contenders. That's kind of how it usually works.
Yeah, and with Woodley, I think he was always willing to fight the contenders, but there's no harm in trying to get the money fights.
Yeah,
in my opinion,
closed mouth doesn't get fed.
Yeah, I mean, there's no to me there's no bravery in just taking whoever the UFC wants to give you. I think that for Tyron Woodley, I think he was completely in the right to try to do that, to try to make the most money for his family. Look, you have a very limited time in the sport. You know, when you're the champion, you have some leverage. It's very rare where a UFC fighter has leverage over the company. So when you're the champion, you have a little bit of leverage, although they can make interim belts, they can strip you. So it's not an unlimited amount of leverage, but if you have leverage, you got to use it because they'll use it against you when the shoe's on the other foot. They'll use it against you. So when you're the champion, you have a little bit of leverage. You use that. Tyron Woodley has a family. He wants to make the most possible amount of money. He can't fight forever. He has this window of time where he can try to make the most possible money for his family and for his future. And he's trying to do that. He was trying to fight George St. Pierre. Would have pulled a big number. Trying to fight McGregor or Nick Diaz would have pulled a big number. A bigger number than a Stephen Wonderboy Thompson or a Damian Maia or a Darren Till even. So yeah, I don't blame him at all for that. And then ultimately they couldn't come to any kind of agreement, and he took the next contender in line, and that's fine. He tried. I don't begrudge him that one bit.
Yeah. Well, hey, let's keep on the Woodley train. Next question is coming from Darby Crash 81, who wants to know Kamaru Usman's two best victories were over fighters that Colby Covington had already snatched their souls. So why should he get the next title shot at the 170-pound belt? Or is this some ploy by the UFC to force Woodley in Colby's hand? I don't get it, he writes. So this is obviously referencing the whole Tyron Woodley, Kamaru Usman, Colby Covington sort of triangle that we have going on. And yeah, I more or less I think Dana White's insistence to put Usman into this spot is very much a play to try to get Woodley and Covington to agree to this fight because they really want that fight for 233, I believe. Is that the right card? I'm trying to.
Well, 233 no longer exists.
Oh no, 230. Yeah, whatever. But they really want that fight in general for the first quarter of 2019.
Yeah.
And I will say though, Kamaru Usman, he beat both those people more convincingly than Colby Covington, Damian Maia, and Rafael dos Anjos. His title shot claim is just as good as anybody else.
Agreed. And I think anything that's coming out publicly right now from any side of it, whether it be Covington or Woodley or Usman or the UFC, I think almost all of it is public negotiation. It's almost all public posturing, trying to jockey around. I don't think there is any kind of fight set yet. I don't think Usman is necessarily the next contender. I think he wants to be, and he's trying to force the issue. And I think that Covington wants to be, and he's forcing the issue. But I don't think anything has been decided just yet. I think Woodley is still honestly injured, and he's not ready to come back yet. And it's really going to depend on. And then the UFC was trying to pressure Woodley into fighting, even though he's still a little bit banged up with his thumb injury. I think everything public right now, all of that confusion is really just every side trying to jockey for that fight next. I don't know what is next, but I don't know. I don't really know if it's anything but that. And I wanted to add one more thing to that last question about the champions trying to pick fights. Well, they're independent contractors. They're employees. They're not employees by law. You can't, if you were to hire like a plumber as an independent contractor, you say, hey, here's the job. and the plumber can say no, like no, I'm not. I don't want to do that job, and that's it. Same way with the fighter. If you give offer a fighter a contract, and they say no, I'm not interested in that contract right now, then that's it. I mean, that's just how it goes. That's how the independent contractor thing works. The UFC can't force anyone to fight anyone. They have leverage, and they will use that leverage, but they can't force it.
Yeah. So we're running out of time. You want to do one more, and then we'll do promo and get out of here?
Man, time is flying here. I honestly, I mean, someone is asking you, Shaun, if you'll add them as a Switch friend so you can play SSBU. I have no idea what any of that means.
Since you talked for pro wrestling for about 20 minutes, I'll talk about that really quickly.
I talked about for 1 minute.
I'm just kidding with you. I don't have a Nintendo Switch. I really want to get a Nintendo Switch. That's actually one of the things on my Christmas list this year because Smash Brothers came out, and I am an incredibly good Smash Brothers player, I must say. But hey, hopefully I get one this year. And if I get one and Smash Brothers, I will add you. Who is this? Mudcrab. I will add you, Mudcrab, and we can play around. And I will beat the living crap out of you in some Smash Brothers.
Let's do one more question.
Let's do it.
From your boy, Laz Nikolovsky. Ready for this?
Okay.
Hey, gents, I would appreciate your thoughts on UFC in 2018, meaning pointless interim titles, money fights, etc. Do you think things will change in the future? Huge fan of your podcast. Thanks.
Oh, thank you. We appreciate that. No, I don't.
Laz.
I don't think things are going to change in the future. I think things will probably continue down this path. I mean, this is the different era than what we were accustomed to a couple of years ago. It is now apparent.
It may even get worse.
Yeah,
it may get worse.
I was going to say, but I don't feel like it'll get better. It probably is going to get worse because if you look at the schedule next year, especially with UFC 233 getting canceled, and so they added another pay-per-view at some point on that schedule now, there are so many events. And the UFC is now having to serve so many different masters with ESPN Plus, ESPN Proper, and pay-per-view, obviously, along with Fight Pass. We'll see. Who knows if they're going to still be doing shows on Fight Pass. But
nope.
At this point, man, ESPN is not going to be the type of company that's going to settle for some of these cards that Fox was settling for. I think Fox was more or less just happy to have content. I don't know that UFC Proper will be the same. So the UFC is going to be serving a lot of different masters in 2019, and I feel like this problem is probably going to get worse before if it even does get better.
Yeah, I totally agree. Look, we already saw an event get canceled at UFC 233. There's no more pay-per-view event on January 26th in LA. In Anaheim like they had planned because they could not find an adequate main event. They pulled the main event off of that to fight on ESPN, Cejudo versus Dillashaw, because they needed a big main event for that. There is not going to be any difference next year. The UFC is going to be trying to find main events for all of these damn cards, all these pay-per-views, all these ESPN cards. There's going to be even more of a scramble because ESPN is going to want big fights on ESPN Plus and big ESPN. The UFC is going to want to put big fights on those cards. So it's going to be it could even get worse next year. There could be more interim titles. There could be more title stripping. There could be more super fights and kind of those short-term bookings, those short-term, hotshot bookings that try to make good money because it makes sense in that time frame. So I don't see that changing anytime soon unless they scale back the amount of events.
Which it seems they're reluctant to do so.
Certainly. They already guaranteed ESPN a large number of events. They still plan on doing 12 or 13 pay-per-views next year. So that's a loaded schedule. I mean, we're talking about 40 plus events again next year, maybe even more than this year.
And also, I mean, part of that is the roster has ballooned to such a crazy number, and all of these guys are more or less entitled to 3 fights a year, guys and women. So at this point, the only way you can fulfill that quota is to have all of these events. If they want to change things, they either need to trim down the roster or trim down the events or something. Man, it all goes hand in hand.
Yeah, I mean that's you said it best. It's they have plenty of fighters, but they don't have enough fighters to fill those main event slots, and not enough titles to fill those main event slots.
Yeah. Well, hey, we have run out of time. Let's do the promo, and then we can get out of here. What do you want to go first, Marc, or you want me to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first. I have it's not really a promo. It's more of a kick to the fans, the listeners. A little bit update on our show, and a little bit of a request for feedback. So we've been doing the show now since July, since the first week, since right after UFC 226. I don't know how many weeks that is, but it's been a bit. We know it, and we had some technical issues already today. We've had some technical issues throughout, which is probably going to happen. Working on getting better equipment. We're working on improving that. Next week, we're going to be both live in Las Vegas. We're going to be doing a live and in-person A-side on Wednesday morning. It may not be the usual time, but we'll keep you guys updated as to what time that's going to be. And I just want to ask, 2019 is coming. It's the new era of the UFC on ESPN. It's a whole new world for MMA. One is coming up. Bellator is getting better. Ryzen has Floyd Mayweather and Gabby Garcia on the same damn card next week. What would you guys like to see from the A side in 2019? What improvements can we make? How can we get better? Outside of technology, we're trying to get better technology wise, but can we talk about different things? Is there anything that we're missing? What can we do better? How can we better serve you, the audience? So that is your homework for the holidays. Please let Shaun or me know on Twitter or Instagram or wherever you can find us, email, snail mail, whatever you got, telegraph. Let us know how we can make this better for everyone, and we will try to implement those changes next year. We've always said this is your show, not our show, and we want to kick it to you guys and ask exactly what it is that we can do better. And we know we can get better. You know, we definitely want to get better. And again, it's a new era of MMA in 2019, and we hope to make it a new era, maybe the A-Side 2.0 next year as well.
Well said, man. I echo everything you just said. I feel like we say it often on the show, but we are still very much trying to figure this out. This was a new experience for both Marc and I. We've been in this industry a long time, but we've never really done something like this. So any feedback you guys want to give us, any suggestions, any recommendations, absolutely, we would be happy to hear them. Like Marc said, this is your guys' show. So well said, Marc. And also we apologize again for the technical difficulties today. It has been an extremely frustrating day, to say the least. Hopefully we can figure those out moving forward. For me, I just have a really brief one. I know there is so much negativity in the news these days, not just in the sport, but just like in the world in general. It's hard to escape the negativity. So in the spirit of the holidays, let's shine a little light on a little positivity, right? And for that, let's rewind to Saturday. And in my opinion, really the walkout of the year. Ilima-Lei Macfarlane. It has been so long since the talk of taking an event to Hawaii has been so long in the making. People have wanted it for so long. Hawaiians have wanted it for so long. And there's so much talent in Hawaii. It felt criminal that we haven't had a major event in Hawaii yet. And Bellator really pulled through this weekend with the back-to-back events. Our own Esther and Casey were there. And like I said earlier, I was extremely jealous of them being there. The whole time, it seemed like the setting was gorgeous. Everyone was excited to be there. It was it made for a very cool fight week, and very cool weekend. But man, Hawaii really lived up to their end of the bargain, I have to say, because that Ilima-Lei Macfarlane walkout was incredible. Her walking out with, I don't know the specific name, but all the Hawaiian dancers and the music and the crowd was the crowd was just so into it. And I know that Ilima-Lei isn't like a known commodity outside of the MMA bubble. And the same goes for who she was fighting, Valerie Letourneau. But that fight really felt big. And it felt big because of all the outside factors that surrounded it that sort of made it feel big. The Hawaiian crowd, the ambience, just the whole setup. It was incredible. And it really is a reminder that fighting can be like a very, very special thing when it's done correctly, man. With Stipe Miocic goes to Cleveland, it makes everything feel bigger. It makes him feel bigger. It elevates the entire event. With Jose Aldo in Brazil, or my favorite ever, which is a low-key one, but Mark Hominick walking out in Toronto at UFC 129 to coming home before that was really a cliche. All of these moments give you goosebumps. They make the sport feel bigger. They just make you feel good about the sport. So, hey, Ilima-Lei Macfarlane, walkout of the year for 2018. That was incredible. Hopefully more Hawaii events are coming, because that was really cool, and you could tell the crowd really appreciated it. So well done, Bellator. Well done, Ilima-Lei. Well done, everyone involved there.
Completely agree. I feel like the UFC they don't really make regional stars all that often. They've done it a few times, like with Stipe Miocic. Underrated one was Matt Brown in Cincinnati. That was actually a really fun one when he fought in Cincinnati. They just don't do that often. And I wish they would, because it does lead to really cool moments like that. Not just for the fans and for the athletes, but also everyone else watching at home, even though you're maybe not from that area. It's still a cool thing to see.
Yeah, I mean, I was just watching on TV and I got goosebumps. It translates. Oh, yeah. It totally translates.
Chicken skin, Shaun. Chicken skin.
You can just feel the excitement through. And that's an important thing because, like I said, it really elevates and makes the athletes feel bigger.
100%.
Yeah. But hey, we went a little long today. Apologies again for the technical difficulties. That is so frustrating.
We made up for that time that the stream was down.
That is so damn frustrating. We'll try to make sure that doesn't happen moving forward. But hey, thank you so much again for watching. This has been the A-Side Live Chat Podcast. Like Marc said, we have a little something special next week from Las Vegas. We'll try to get that figured out. It probably might be later in the day because I got to travel there, but we'll get something going for that. In the meantime, have a very happy holidays. Enjoy your holiday break. Enjoy the weekend. Try not to be too stressed out. We appreciate you guys watching. For Marc Raimondi over there, I am Shaun Al-Shatti, and this has been the A-Side Live Chat Podcast. We will see you next week.